Hello and welcome to Jobs in Schools North East webinar, Maths and Physics Teachers Available. We're just waiting for a few more attendees to arrive, so we're with you in just a couple of minutes. So hello to anyone that has just joined us and welcome to the Jobs in Schools North East webinar, Maths and Physics Teachers Available. My name is Lucy McMahon and I'm the Relationship Manager at Schools North East, as well as managing Jobs in Schools North East. I will be the host for today's webinar. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, please send any questions through to Sam Murray, who is the organiser for today's event. You will find her on the right-hand side of your go-to webinar control. She will try to help you solve any problems that you may have. You're more than welcome to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Please send all questions through to the organiser. Do this via the question and answer panel on the right-hand side of your go-to webinar control. We will collate all questions during the webinar and will try to answer as many as we can during the Q&A at the end. Please see the Twitter hashtags and handles at the bottom of the screen. You can use these to live tweet about the webinar, follow other attendees and share amongst your own followers. In 2015, Schools North East was challenged by local head teachers to find a solution to the fact that schools were struggling with recruitment. They wanted to find a regional solution that was affordable for schools. In January 2016, we launched Jobs in Schools North East, the only North East education-specific recruitment portal. Since January 2016, we have grown the site from 60 schools to more than 200, with over 1,700 candidates signed up to receive job alerts, and we are committed to growing this further. Jobs in Schools North East is not for profit, so any surplus made will be ploughed back into improving and growing the site. This is Jobs in Schools North East's second ever webinar as part of the Schools North East webinar programme, which is brand new for this academic year. We are still learning as we go along, so please be sympathetic as there may be a couple of speed bumps along the way. I would now like to introduce you to our presenters so that we can get straight into the content. Our main speaker today is Paul Johnson, Assistant Head Teacher at Churchill Community College. Paul will also be joined today by Leslie Phillips and Ashley Lowe from Prospero Teaching and Vic Jones from the Department for Education. I will now hand over to Paul.
Okay, I'm Paul Johnson here. Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar. I'm just going to introduce Leslie and Ashley as well so you can recognise our voices.
Hello, I'm Leslie.
And hello, I'm Ashley.
And Vic is in a different location to us, but Vic, do you want to say hello as well?
Hello.
Okay, so we're here to just talk to you a little bit about the new programme that the DFE are funding, which is trying to bring in internationally qualified maths and science teachers, specifically physics, to schools in the north of England. So what we're going to do is take you through a few different elements to this. So the first, I'll just go back one slide, excuse me. So just to give you an idea of where we're going to begin with, we are going to give you an introduction and outline of the programme to begin with. We'll then hand over to Leslie and Ashley, who will talk a little bit about the profile and the background of the international teachers. And then we'll talk a little bit about what it involves from the school's point of view, the commitment of the employing schools and what that actually means and how it will affect you and how really you can benefit enormously from this. Prospero can also explain a little bit about how to go about the employment, and it is a lot easier than you might expect. And then we'll open time for questions at the end, and we'll try and make sure we do leave plenty of time for that. So that's where we're going to go with this. So I'll start by giving you an outline, if you like, of the programme, and Leslie and Ashley will chip in as we do that. So I'll hand over to them to begin with.
Okay, so Teach STEM International is a new collaboration, and we've been commissioned by the DfE to, Prospero been commissioned by the DfE to recruit and source maths and physics teachers from 4 countries: Australia, Canada, America, and New Zealand. So it's a really exciting new initiative. We're working very closely in collaboration with Paul and with the Maths North Hub.
The Great North Maths Hub.
The Great North Maths Hub. Okay. The main thing to remember is that the DfE have funded this programme, which means that there are no recruitment fees to the schools, and that they're also funding the acclimatisation and CPT to support these teachers. Okay, should we go to the next slide?
And we'll explain a bit more about what that looks like shortly. Okay, so in terms of that, the program itself then looks a little bit like this. It's something that is based on a project that was originally part of the government's Test and Learn project. Southeast region started with something very, very similar that they called Quantum Scholars, and they were really the pilot. It's now being rolled out into the other Teaching Schools Council regions, including obviously ourselves in the north. And as Leslie's already said, the aim is to try and recruit, support and place international maths and physics teachers. And there are 2 windows that we're trying to do this in and that the DfE are funding, which is both September this year and also January of 2019. We've tried to make sure that within this, it is something that has a rigorous recruitment process. So the applicants that when we've accepted them onto the programme, they will have already been through a screening interview process. Those applicants we then try and match to interested and appropriate employing schools, who then would get the chance, obviously, to carry out a final interview prior to appointment. So in terms of that, I'm going to hand over to Ashley and Leslie to explain a little bit about who these people are that they're getting.
Okay, well, actually, first, let me take a step back. Having said hello before, I want to introduce myself. So I am the owner and the founder of Prospero Teaching, and Ashley is actually the head of our international recruitment in London. So we have, there's another slide later on that goes into more detail about Prospero, and I'll whisk over it then. But we've got offices around the UK and England, and about 9 of them, I think, at the moment. And we've got 3 or 4 offices overseas as well. So we're pretty experienced in international recruitment. And the aim of this initiative and this collaboration is to bring those maths and good maths and physics teachers, qualified teachers, over to England and fill that skill shortage. I think this is an initiative going throughout England at the moment, and we're focusing right now on the schools in the north. So we, Prospero, providing, as well as the recruitment, a level of pre-arrival support, visas, relocation advice, of which Ashley knows lots about, we'll speak about later. And there's also a lot of support that's being funded and provided by the Great North Maths Hub and evidence-based education, a whole sort of residential program, which Paul will be talking about later, as well as the CPD. So the idea is to support these teachers, as well as find good teachers, to support them and work with you in making the whole program a success.
Hi, so I'm Ashley. Hopefully you can tell my voice. I am from Australia, but have told I've been starting to get an English twang, so hopefully I don't. I'm also a qualified teacher as well, and I've taught both in the UK and back home. But basically, we have obviously been tasked with this, and just so that you're aware of the the criteria that we have for actually sourcing the teachers. So to start with, they have to be from America, Australia, Canada, or New Zealand. So obviously we're just focusing of people from that area, from those areas. They have to be maths and physics teachers that are qualified in one of the above countries as well, and then eligible for qualified teacher status in England. So I myself have qualified teacher status, and we're fully aware of the different ways that each country can go down that pathway to obtain that. So we're fully aware of how that has to happen, and we'll obviously be only working with those kinds of teachers. Just talking about, obviously we've got a big investment in advertising and a marketing campaign to attract these kinds of teachers, and working with our overseas offices, we'll be able to obviously present these teachers and to interested schools in the UK. Yep, that's yours.
Okay, I mentioned a little bit about Prospero teaching earlier. I'm not going to go into it too much because I know you want to find out more about the teachers right now. But we've got offices in Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and other places overseas. So we're really experienced in international recruitment, and we actually, as you can tell, actually employ educators and teachers that have experienced teaching in various situations. And they understand what these international teachers go through and their experiences, the difficulties, the barriers, and the positives. So we have been we have been selected by the DFE to work to recruit these teachers in the north, and we exercise really thorough interviewing techniques, both overseas and when they get over here with all the schools.
And I think, is it worth just re-emphasising what you two have both alluded to, which is to the really important point, these are qualified teachers. These are not people who are coming across to train. They are qualified teachers.
Yes, so without going into the process, for any of the teachers qualified in America, New Zealand, Canada, or Australia to be eligible for QTS, they already have to have obviously a qualification in that country and then a couple of years experience minimum to be eligible to get that. So they are qualified and experienced teachers coming from these countries.
Yeah.
Just so briefly, so you're aware of our process and what we do. So once we're obviously through our marketing, we've got a pool of candidates that we then sift through. And doing that, we're assessing their suitability for interviewing by ensuring that they fit the criteria above. We then, during the interview process, make sure we've spoken about talking about their teaching experience and goals. The biggest thing, obviously, with relocating would be their motivations for relocating. So that's a big one, talking about that, their current work commitments, and then obviously the availability to relocate from that. And then the other biggest thing is obviously just getting to know them as a person, building a relationship with them, just to make sure that they are a good fit to do this kind of thing. And having done it all ourselves, we know what's sort of required of a candidate to do that kind of thing. And once we're sort of satisfied with all of that, we then move straight on to obtaining references for the candidates, because we know that's one thing that is, just to back up what we're saying as well. Once we're then satisfied with their eligible and suitable candidates, we then build a profile on them. So things including a photograph, a bit about their background, their nationality, their availability for Skype-based interviews, and obviously things like a start date and location preference, which are what you'd be looking for from a school's point of view. We also then give them a lot of pre-arrival support. So again, all of the knowledge that we have from doing it ourselves, so including just relocation advice, bank account setup, which can be quite difficult over here, introduction to teaching in the UK, and we've also got a safeguarding course. So not only online courses, but again, just stuff through our own experience, we can help out with that as well. And obviously then also collecting relevant documentation for police checks and things like that. So we do all of that in the process leading up to their arrival. We also then assist with any visa processes. So just so you know, obviously people coming internationally will need to have work eligibility. So the first two on that slide, the Tier 5 Youth Mobility Visa, and whether someone has access to a UK passport, EU passport, or UK ancestry visa, you will not need to worry about anything like that. We'll work out whether they have that eligibility, and then we can help them through that process, and basically they're good to go here. The only one that is a little bit different, and if no one is eligible for those first two, is sponsorship. So you may have heard a little bit about this, and this one is a little bit more involved, but again, not as bad as what you might think. And Prospero have not only gone through this process with me, but we've also done it with teachers and schools as well. So we know exactly what it's like, and we're here to help both school and teacher with this process. So the whole process, if you are looking to sponsor a teacher, would take between 8 and 12 weeks normally. That's just obviously a guide, from everything from getting the sponsorship license at the start, that's a school's point of view, right through to the teacher receiving their visa to come over. So the process is fairly straightforward. If the school or council doesn't already have a sponsorship license, you would need to apply for that, and that can last for up to 4 years. So if you're looking to do this kind of thing in the future, you only need the license up front first, and then it will last for 4 years. Once you have that, you can then apply for a certificate of sponsorship. Now, the maths and physics teachers are on the shortage supply list, so this is almost fast-tracked, and you just straight away can apply for that certificate, and then once that's granted, the teacher can then go through and apply for their visa that way. The only thing to know is that the certificate of sponsorship has to have been granted and cleared before the teacher can then apply for their actual tier 2 visa, because they need a number that's given to apply for that. But then once that's done, that's all pretty much good to go. And then with the visa for the teacher to apply, that can take between 2 and 4 weeks. So that's sort of the end of that, and then they would obviously just arrive in the country and be ready to go.
But if you already have a sponsorship license, that 8 to 12 weeks will be reduced. So it's shorter.
So even if the school doesn't have the sponsorship license, just to clarify, the school can already start that process of working through the employment. Absolutely. Whilst they're going through the sponsorship application process.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. So that's essentially the basics of how it would work from an employment point of view. Obviously, we'll take questions a little bit later for anyone who has any more specific or involved ones. One of the things that you do need to understand and be aware of, though, is that at the end of the day, the schools that are, people who are coming in, the teachers that are coming in, are going to be a bit different. They aren't people who have been born and brought up in the UK. Ashley's kind of looking a bit offended by that, but in the sense, different in a good way. But in terms of that, there is going to be a level at which they will be used to teaching. They're qualified teachers, but they won't necessarily have had that experience, or won't have had that experience necessarily in the UK. And so as part of this, we will be providing, as an organisation, Teach Them International is essentially what we've called ourselves, as a combination of Prospero and the Great North Maths Hub. And we're providing a number of different things which we would want to make clear from the outset. So we want to make sure that there is somebody in school for these new teachers coming across who can be their mentor, who can work with them, and who can be around, and a person who can support them and can provide them with advice and guidance over things that they might encounter in their day-to-day job, and indeed in their day-to-day lives. It's important that somebody is there who they can talk to. And that is one of the things that I'll refer to in a moment around commitment from schools. But there will need to be a mentor there, and we will make sure that we provide between us some training for those mentors. For the people coming across, for the teachers coming across, they will be arriving, one assumes, sometime in August, starting in September. And what we have been asked to do by the DFE, quite rightly, is make sure that they have a chance to acclimatise a bit. So there is going to be an acclimatisation event which will cover things like the curriculum, because of course they won't be used to necessarily the national curriculum as we have it here and as we know it here, let alone the different qualifications at Key Stage 4 and beyond. So we'll take them through the curriculum. Behaviour management will be a part of that, because the systems will be different. And we appreciate that while systems in different schools are different, we want to make sure that people are being given some support and some refresher training at the very least in behaviour management, as well as maths and physics pedagogy. And that will be delivered by a range of different organisations, so not just the Great North Maths Hub. We'll be working with other partner organisations to deliver that programme, and we'll be able to give them more details nearer the time. What we're also think is really important is that there is an element of quality assurance, because we have a commitment to these people that are coming across. As Ashley, I'm sure, will testify, it is a massive deal to come across really halfway around the world, relocate yourself, relocate your entire life. And we need to ensure that these people who have made that commitment are getting the appropriate level of support from us and indeed from the school. So as part of that, we are going to be having half-termly support visits by, we call them a professional advisor. So remember, these are qualified teachers. They are not therefore needing to have mentoring or training in the ITT sense or even in the NQT sense. But we do need to have somebody who is coming from outside, who is just coming along, getting an overview and making sure that everything is okay and touching base with them. That's part of the responsibility that we have. So we'll be asking them to go into the school, carry out an observation with on the teacher, just to see how things are going, make sure that everything's fine. The professional advisor, incidentally, will be somebody who is one of the leadership team of the Great North Maths Hub or the Science Learning Partnership. And we'll be also asking every other, alternating in other words, every other one of those support visits to have a meeting as well with their in-school mentor, just to make sure that they can have a little conversation there around that, and ask them to do a joint observation as well. Again, it's all part of that quality assurance process. It gives us a chance to also get some feedback from the teachers and from the mentors as well. The other element of this is that an important way of trying to boost why the North is a good place to come to, aside from the fact that we love the North and it's a wonderful area of the country, is also the fact that we want to offer the people coming to the North, the teachers coming to the North, something a little bit more. And one of the things that we're going to be offering as part of that is roughly 1 day per half term, where they will be able to be part of a network and be given some additional professional development. It's going to be a residential, so we'll be asking them to come down the night before, and that gives them the chance to spend some time with each other. And the experience of the Southeast pilot was that they felt very strongly that was an important part of this. People coming from a long way away, if they feel really isolated, will find it difficult. And actually, we need to make sure that they have regular contact with other people who are in a similar position. And so we'll be putting this package together at no cost to the school, and the school will need to release them, and I'll mention that again in a moment. But essentially, it's a residential opportunity for them then to have the following day of training. And we've actually worked very closely with Evidence-Based Education, who are a training provider based out of Durham, originally out of Durham University. Very closely worked with Professor Rob Coe, and the Chem Centre there. They have what they call their assessment lead program. It's a really high level, high standard piece of training that they are actually at the moment taking people through internationally, let alone just around the country. And we're very fortunate that they have agreed to work with us to provide something for these teachers, which will essentially be world-leading training on high-quality assessment procedures. Craig Barton, who, if you have anything to do with maths, you probably will have come across, is very big in the maths world, and he will be working with them as well as part of that. Subject to confirmation, just to do with the numbers being viable and so on. So they're all signed up, they're ready to go, and they're really, really keen to this. Now, you may think that that's just about benefiting the teachers, but actually I would like to point out that it's a massive benefit to you in the school as well, because it'll mean that you are getting for free somebody who can then cascade this training to the rest of the department and indeed the rest of the school. So although it will mean that they are going out of a day once, out of school once a day per half term, it will mean that they will bring an awful lot back to you, as I say, getting international standard CPD at no cost to you.
Can I just, actually, I'm just going to say something at that point.
Okay.
As we have been talking to teachers, and maths and physics teachers are in demand across the world. And so we've got to make this package attractive to them. And as we've been talking about what's attractive to come to the North, actually we've been looking very much at the sort of package Paul's putting together as well. And some of the teachers we've been talking to so far have bought into, not just bought into Prospero, the relationship with our international team, but also brought into this initiative and this program, and think and want to become part of this exciting initiative that's happening and participate. And they're excited about this level of training and these acclimatization events. So, you know, it's actually an exciting proposition for them to come to the North and be part of this.
And I think that's one of the things, and we might mention, we've seen a couple of candidates that have already come through and that we've seen who are very, very experienced people in terms of their length of teaching experience. So from that point of view, I think, you know, we like to think that this is something that will be really attractive to them and to schools indeed as well. So from your point of view, what your commitment is going to need to be will be support. Firstly, these are international teachers, and therefore they will need some sort of level of commitment within the school to being there to support them. Firstly, with an induction program, and best practice would suggest you'll no doubt have that in place already. But you know, we would expect them to have and be able to take full part in that induction program. And if you are in a position where your school run an induction program when these teachers wouldn't be in the country, then obviously we would just ask that you make sure that that something is put on for them in replacement, just because they will need that element of really additional acclimatization. We are, again, expecting informal but regular meetings with their in-school mentor. Now, this isn't about NQT mentoring, this isn't about ITT mentoring, where it has to be really, really rigid. It may be weekly, that would be the obvious suggestion, and it doesn't necessarily need to be at all a timetabled lesson. That's not what this program is about. But we would say we would anticipate that you have in place something that enables the teacher to have someone that they know that they can speak to on a regular basis, so that they can have that regular catch up, address any issues that have come up, and that there is somebody who's named there who is their point of contact, who they see regularly. Informal support, obviously, with behaviour management systems, etc., where that might be an issue. Time, I've already kind of alluded to. We would expect the mentor would need to attend the Twilight training. And this is even somebody maybe who's mentored ITT trainees in the past, somebody who's experienced as an NQT mentor. Doesn't matter, because this is different. And this is going to be a different sort of mentoring. And so we would expect people to be able to attend that. We will do our best. We obviously have an enormous geographical region, and we will do our best to make that as easy as possible, so that it isn't a case that we'll be asking people to travel huge long distances. If we can make something that's much more straightforward for you, without having to travel for hours and hours and hours to get to, we will do our best to make sure that is as easy as possible. We will also want to make sure that there is a commitment from those in-school mentors to having those regular meetings. As I say, it doesn't have to be a timetabled lesson at all, but it should be some sort of level of commitment. That the teachers are there as well in terms of in-school mentors for regular meetings with internationals, that they are able to meet that professional advisor, to have that meeting, and that they are released for the networks and the CPD. We'll pay for supply cover for them for the day as well. Ultimately, understanding it's a big decision for the teachers. They may need a couple of days when when you give them a job offer. Normally, the normal practice in the UK is that you essentially expect an answer on the day at that moment. If you're a firm candidate, yes, well, in that case, you've got the job. You know, these are people who are relocating across the country, across the world, so may just need a bit of time to decide that, and understanding around the cultural differences. Aside from that, just final things, just be aware. Just because you register your interest in the program does not guarantee we'll definitely be able to provide you with a teacher. We will do our level best, but we cannot absolutely guarantee it. There is a small chance, we have to make this clear now. We don't expect it, but we need to make sure that there is a small chance of a dropout, possibly at short notice. We're not expecting that to happen, but you need to be aware that that is a tiny possibility. They will be experienced teachers. They're not experienced in the UK. We've already said that. It's also important they may have signed up to more than one agency. Turnaround has to be fast. And I know looking at Ashley and Leslie that they are really keen that people understand that. We are making sure that we are trying to compete against people who are also trying to recruit these teachers around the world, and indeed in London and other parts of the country. So on that basis, you need to be aware of that. And finally, we're not competing here. We will match one teacher to one vacancy. And we'll expect you to make that turnaround very quickly, but essentially you're not going to have the same person being marketed to you or shared with you as at the same time as another school. If we've got to that stage, that's what's happening. So questions, and then before I hand over to that, Leslie or Ashley, anything else you wanted to add?
Only the sense that we want these teachers to have a sense of belonging, to feel like they're part of something. So not just the program, but when they go to the school, the mentor's there to help them really fit into the school and feel like they are part of it. And then, of course, going along to the maths hubs, going along to the CPDs, going along to the workshops, that's all going to help them feel a sense of belonging too. And then we'll help them network as well with other teachers in similar positions.
Yeah, and just touching on what Paul was saying about understanding and elaborating on further what Leslie was saying with belonging, it is understanding that, I guess, when people like me have done this kind of thing, the school and that community is basically what is their support network as well. So that it is really important that's all covered, because we don't really have anyone else. When we go home, we kind of don't have anyone else to sort of rely on with that kind of thing. So the support is a big one.
Okay, obviously we're running out of time at this stage, and we want to kind of address any questions that people do have. So if you do have a question, please do type it in now. Obviously, we anticipate the number of you listening will actually be listening on the recording. So if you do have any questions, then please feel free to either contact either Prospero or myself. And our contact details, well, we're at the Great North Maths Hub, paul.johnson@ntlp.org.uk, or Prospero via...
Well, you could use the international.framework at prosperoteaching.com.
Okay, I'm just seeing if we have any other questions that have come through. Do you want to answer that one?
Right, so the questions, let's have a look. So how does the interview process work?
I mean, it's important to point out at this stage, isn't it, that you're not going to get somebody coming across and actually teaching a lesson. That's just not realistic, is it? So how does it work from your end?
Or from what we do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So obviously, like I said, we speak with them in detail about the experience that they've had, and obviously being teachers, we're able to sort of have those conversations quite easily. We would bank on their references as well, have a look at them. We do often ask that people, if they can, provide a video of their teaching. So, you would possibly get some footage of them teaching as well. Obviously, with the time frame we have at the moment, it's sort of the middle of May, and we're looking for people for September. That is a bit of a struggle to get that happening, but we do that as well.
Okay, so I'm going to add on to that. So, of course, we've interviewed them overseas through our international offices. So they've gone through one interview process already. Then we're packaging them up with their videos and their CVs and everything else, and sending them over to Paul and yourselves. And through that process, there will be another interview stage. And the interview stage may be where Paul actually speaks to them and interviews them as well, and then provides his expertise. And you'll want to speak to them. So they're going to go through this interview process. At the same time, we need this to happen fairly quickly. We want them to be engaged, motivated, and we've got to sell to them a bit as well, frankly, because this is a two-way thing here. These are good, qualified maths and physics teachers, and we want them to feel like they're part of not just a great initiative, but also we have to talk to them about your vacancy, your school. So the interview process, we want to cut down to, 48 hours, three days, something like that. It's going to have to be quite fast.
And certainly the experience that we've had with one particular candidate who we've gone through that process was, I have to say, speaking as having interviewed him with David Baldwin, who's our executive head teacher here and a mathematician himself, and asked some pretty searching questions around maths. And that's worth saying, that we will always make sure that we've got a specialist as part of that interview process, actually asking some of those pedagogy questions. But we were really impressed with the quality of the interview and his answers, and actually the technology worked really effectively. We managed to Skype him from New Zealand. We were really impressed. He was very excellent answers, qualified teacher, long-serving teacher, really keen to move here, really keen to be part of this, and we were absolutely delighted with what we saw. And I think that's what's really given us, from our point of view, having not gone down this route before, not had the experience that Prospero have had, we were really impressed with the quality that we saw there. And had we had at the time any vacancies, we would have had no hesitation, I think, in taking him on.
Good. And then the other final bit is, I suppose you're wondering, how are you as a school going to interview him or her? And this will have to happen over Skype. It will have to happen digitally, but by then you'll be armed with all the material we sent you, the package, the references, the CV. You'll have everything there, and we will have already put together a very clear structure on interview questions, and we're happy to share those with you as well, the feedback that we've got from those. And we look at how they perform in class, what their strategies are, what would they do in certain situations. The idea is to get behind that interview, get it from that interview as much as we can, so as close as we can to a lesson observation.
But then that leaves you with the freedom to do your own interview as well. And we wouldn't expect, I don't think, you to take somebody on without having had a chance to Skype interview them, because they will also want to talk to you as well.
Yeah, it would be very unlikely for someone to accept a position without actually knowing.
And they want to speak to you. They want
Absolutely.
to speak to schools to find out if it's right fit for them.
So I think, I don't think unless we've got any other questions then, as I say, we've already kind of given you those contact details. If you do have any further questions, please feel free to get in contact either with Prospero or with us at the Great North Maths Hub. We're more than happy to talk to you on the phone or give you information via email. And please feel free to pass this on. This is a recording, or this will be being recorded and distributed to anybody who requests it later.
I'm going to add one final quick thing is, if you want to write to us and ask for case studies or find out how it's worked before to feel secure and safe in this process, then please do, because we have lots of experience in this area and we've made it work lots of times.
Yeah, and on that, Leslie, I'm happy to speak with anyone if you'd like to talk to me, just even about my own experience or anything else to do with international recruitment and people relocating, because I know this is a fairly new thing for up here. But I guess even just initially to think about and speak with someone who's already open to the idea of relocating, that already shows a level of adaptability with that kind of person anyway. So, to take that away as well, just to have that in the back of your mind.
Okay, and just in terms of those contact details that I think somebody's just asked about again, I'm hoping that we will be able to get that sent out with the link to the recording. And if not, just to reiterate those contact details, paul.johnson@ntlp.org.uk or
international.framework@prosperoteaching.com.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. I hope it has been useful and hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So thank you to Paul, Leslie, Ashley and Vic, and thanks for the answers to those questions. If you would like any more information on Jobs in Schools North East, you can visit the website www.jobsinschoolsnortheast.com. You can email myself at l.mcmahon@schoolsnortheast.com or call me on 0191 349 5793. Schools North East still has 2 conferences left this term. Coming up on the 24th of May at Durham County Cricket Club is our Healthy Minded conference, which focuses on mental health within education. We will be joined by Matthew Hopkinson from the Department for Education, who will be giving us an update on government policy on children and young people's mental health. And our last conference of this academic year is our School Business Management Conference, which will be held on the 14th of June at St James's Park in Newcastle. This event is the biggest of its kind, and we expect this year's to be the biggest yet, with Sally Gunnell, OBE, recently announced as our motivational guest speaker, and a programme packed full of practical workshops and networking opportunities. As I mentioned at the start of the webinar, the Schools North East webinar programme is new for this year and we will be running more before the end of term, so watch out for new titles being announced. We will also be continuing with the Jobs in Schools North East webinars as part of this programme, and we hope to announce the next one very soon. If you would like more information on our events programme, you can visit the Schools North East website, schoolsnortheast.com/events. Alternatively, you can email info@schoolsnortheast.com or call 0191 204 8866. Finally, I'd like to say thank you to our presenters today, Paul Johnson from Churchill Community College, Leslie Phillips and Ashley Lowe from Prospero Teaching, and Vic Jones from the Department for Education. And thank you for your participation. We hope you enjoyed today's Jobs in Schools North East webinar, Maths and Physics Teachers Available.